Hey guys, tonight we will step back in time, not just as observers, but as the main character in our story. Imagine the humid, salty air of the Caribbean, so thick you can almost drink it. You feel the constant, gentle rocking of a wooden ship beneath your feet, a vessel creaking and groaning like a living thing. Before you, a horizon of impenetrable green jungle meets a sea of impossible turquoise, and in your hand, you hold a map that is more myth than measurement, a parchment whispering of untold riches and a life that never ends. You are a conquistador, a man of iron will and even heavier armor, sailing into the unknown. But this isn't just a story of adventure. It's a tale of ambition, obsession, and the brutal reality that often lies behind our most cherished legends. And a small word of warning before we begin. You probably wouldn't survive this. The heat, the disease, the constant threat of the unknown. It's a world that chews up and spits out even the strongest. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. We love having you with us on these nightly journeys, and as always, feel free to post your city and the local time in the comments below. It's a wonderful feeling to see our little community of night owls and history lovers stretching all across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle ambient hum, and let's settle in together for tonight's journey. Your first breath is of the dry, sun-baked air of Castile. You are one Ponce, and the world you are born into is one of stone, dust, and simmering conflict. The year is uncertain, a detail lost to the smudged ink of time. Historians still debate whether you were born in 1460 or 1474, a 14-year gap that represents the difference between being a seasoned man or a hot-blooded youth when destiny comes calling. But for now, you are simply a boy in De Campos, a small village in the kingdom of Valladolid. Your family is noble, but not extravagantly so. You have a crest, a name that carries weight in local circles, but not the vast estates or overflowing coffers that guarantee a life of leisure. You are what they call a younger son, which in the rigid hierarchy of 15th century Spain is a polite way of saying you on your own. Your older brother will inherit the land, the title, the responsibility. You will inherit the family name and the expectation to make your own way in the world, preferably with a sword in your hand. Growing up, the air itself seems to crackle with the energy of the Reconquista, the centuries-long campaign to push the Moorish kingdoms out of the Iberian Peninsula. It is the defining narrative of your time. You don't learn history from dusty books. You learn it from the scarred faces of veterans who come back to the village. From the songs of balladeers in the taverns and from the sermons in the stone-cold church that speak of holy war and God's favor. One of the lesser-known facts about your early life is that your family was directly involved in these final, bloody campaigns against the Emirate of Granada. You hear stories of sieges, of cavalry charges across sun-scorched plains, of the glint of scimitars and the roar of Christian cannons. It seeps into your bones. This is how a man proves his worth. Not by tilling fields or poring over ledgers, but by conquest, by planting the flag of Castile and the cross of Christ on foreign soil. Your training begins early. You serve as a page in the court of a powerful nobleman, a standard path for a boy of your station. It's less about glamour and more about grueling work. You learn to carry messages, to serve at table, to anticipate the needs of your Lord. But more importantly, you learn to fight. The weight of a sword becomes a familiar ache in your arm. You practice footwork in the dusty courtyard until your legs burn. The clank-clank of steel on steel, the soundtrack to your adolescence. You learn to ride a horse until it feels like an extension of your own body, to handle a lance, to read the subtle shifts in a man, as posture that tell you when he is about to strike. You also learn the art of courtly life, the whispered alliances, the veiled insults, the intricate dance of power. It's a useful education, teaching you that the most dangerous battles are not always fought with swords. You develop a quiet, observant nature, a pragmatism that will serve you well. You're not the loudest man in the room, nor the flashiest, but you watch, you learn, and you wait for your moment. Then, in 1492, everything changes. Two monumental events occur that send shockwaves through your world. First, Granada falls. The Reconquista is complete after nearly 800 years. A wave of religious and nationalistic fervor sweeps across Spain. It feels like the dawn of a new age, a moment of divine destiny. But it also presents a problem. What do you do with a whole generation of young men like yourself, trained for war, brimming with ambition, who now have no war to fight? The country is teeming with restless soldiers, a simmering pot of potential chaos. The second event provides the answer. A strange Genoese captain, funded by Queen Isabella herself, returns from sailing west with incredible tales. He speaks of a new world, of islands populated by gentle natives, of lands ripe for the taking, and of gold. Gold, the word, echoes in the halls of power and the back alley taverns. It's a siren song for every landless knight, every ambitious soul in Spain. This captain's name is Christopher Columbus, and he has just thrown open the door to a new world. And you, Juan Ponce de, a man with a noble name, a strong sword arm, and no inheritance to speak of, are standing right in front of it, ready to kick it down. The path to glory no longer lies south in the conquered lands of Granada. It lies west across an endless, terrifying, and promising expanse of ocean. The docks of our chaotic symphony of human ambition. The year is 1493, and you are no longer a boy dreaming of glory, but a young man about to seize it. You've managed to secure a position, not yet, but as a gentleman volunteer on Christopher Columbus's second voyage to the New World. It's a testament to your family's service and your own quiet persistence. The air is thick with the smells of salt, tar, livestock, and the unwashed sweat of 1,000 anxious men. 17 ships are anchored in the bay, a staggering fleet compared to the 3 small vessels of the first voyage. This is no mere exploration. This is an invasion, a full-scale colonization effort. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand are not taking any chances this time. They are sending farmers, priests, soldiers, and artisans. They are sending the seeds of a new Spain. You jostle your way through the crowds, the worn leather of your boots scuffing on the stone quayside. All around you, the scale of the enterprise is dizzying. There are over 1,200 men clamoring for passage, their faces a mixture of greed, piety, and fear. You see grizzled veterans of the Granada campaign standing next to pale-faced boys who have never seen a battle. You hear the frantic bleating of sheep, the whinnying of horses being loaded onto the ships with great difficulty, and the squealing of pigs, a crucial and famously invasive food source for the new colony. It's a well-known historical fact that this second voyage was a massive logistical undertaking, a clear statement of Spain's intent to dominate these new lands. But standing here, in the midst of it all, it just feels like chaos. You have to wonder if the organizers have a clear plan, or if they just throwing as much as they can at the ocean and hoping most of it sticks on the other side. It feels a bit like a medieval version of Moving Day, but with more swords and a much, much higher chance of drowning. You find your assigned vessel, a sturdy caravel whose name you can't even seem to remember in the cacophony. The journey across the Atlantic is a brutal lesson in humility. The world shrinks to the confines of this creaking wooden bubble. For weeks, you see nothing but the endless, undulating blue of the ocean and the white sails of the other ships in your fleet. The ship is a microcosm of Spanish society, rife with class distinctions and simmering tensions. The common sailors do the back-breaking work, while you and the other gentlemen occupy a slightly more privileged, though no less cramped, space. The food is a monotonous rotation of salted meat, so tough it could be used as a weapon, and hard-tacked biscuits that are often infested with weevils. You learn to to tap the biscuit on the table before you eat, a little ritual to knock the bugs out. The stench below decks is overpowering, a ripe cocktail of bilge water, unwashed bodies, seasickness, and the nearby livestock. You spend as much time as you can on the deck, breathing in the clean, salt-laced air. Even when the sun beats down relentlessly, you watch the sailors learning the rhythms of the sea. You are observant, quiet. While other young nobles gamble and boast, you listen. You study the maps, crude as they are, and talk to the pilots. You want to understand this new world, not just conquer it. A little-known tidbit from this era is the sheer terror sailors had of sea monsters. The maps were often decorated with terrifying krakens and serpents in the uncharted regions, and at night, with the ship groaning and the waves crashing, it was easy to let your imagination run wild. Every splash, every shadow in the deep could be a creature from the abyss. You tell yourself it's foolishness, but in the dead of night, you're not so sure. The role you played on this voyage is a matter of some academic debate. Historians argue about whether you were merely a passenger, a soldier in the small military contingent, or something more. You see yourself as an apprentice. You are watching the Admiral, Columbus himself. You see his unshakable self-confidence, his almost mystical belief in his own destiny. But you also see the cracks. You see how he struggles to manage the ambitions of the men under him, how his promises of mountains of gold are already beginning to sound a little hollow. You learn a valuable lesson. Leading men is not just about navigating the sea. It's about navigating their greed and their fear. You realize that the greatest danger on this voyage might not be the ocean, but the men you are sailing with. This is the first crucial step in your education as a conquistador. You are learning that survival in this new world will require more than just skill with a sword. It will require a shrewd understanding of human nature, a talent for politics, and a healthy dose of ruthless pragmatism. The new world isn't just a place on a map. It's a crucible that will forge you into the man you are destined to become, or it will break you. And as the lookout finally cries, "Tierra," you feel a surge of adrenaline. Your apprenticeship is over. The real test is about to begin. The island rises from the sea like a wrinkled green jewel. Columbus names it Hispaniola, Little Spain, but you will come to know it by its native name, Ayiti. As your ship drops anchor in a calm, turquoise bay, the sheer, overwhelming reality of the new world hits you. The air is different, here heavy, humid, and fragrant with the scent of unknown blossoms and damp earth. The sounds are a riot of life. The chatter of brightly colored birds you've never seen before. The incessant hum of insects and a strange, profound silence where you would expect the sounds of a Spanish city. You step off the longboat, and your boots sink into soft, white sand. This is it, the land of opportunity. The place where a man like you can carve out a destiny. Your first years in Hispaniola are a brutal, disillusioning education. The paradise Columbus described in his letters to the Queen is nowhere to be found. Or rather, it is there, but it is not for you. The colony, La Isabela, is a disaster. It was built on a poor site, swampy and mosquito-ridden. The dreams of finding mountains of gold quickly evaporate, replaced by the grim reality of subsistence farming in an alien environment. The wheat and grapevines you brought from Spain wither in the tropical heat. The men, promised fabulous wealth, are instead put to work building huts and digging irrigation ditches under the unforgiving sun. Morale plummets. Sickness sweeps through the settlement, fevers, dysentery, and ailments for which your European doctors have no name and no cure. It's a grim, muddy, desperate place, and men are dying. You, however, prove to be more resilient than most. While other gentlemen complain and plot mutinies, you adapt. You are pragmatic. You learn. You take part in the entradas, armed expeditions into the island's interior. This is the common and brutal reality of early colonization. The goal is twofold: to find gold and to subjugate the native population. You march for days through dense, suffocating jungle, your Spanish armor an oven in the tropical humidity. You learn to fear the sting of insects more than a sword, to be wary of the water you drink, and to live with a constant, gnawing dampness that seems to seep into your very bones. It's during these expeditions that you first witness the dark heart of the colonial enterprise. You see the violence, the casual cruelty inflicted upon the people. You see villages burned, families torn apart. The Spanish demand food, labor, and gold, and when they cannot or will not provide it, the response is swift and brutal. You distinguish yourself not as a butcher, but as an effective soldier and a capable administrator. You have a quiet authority that men respect. You don't fly into rages or make rash decisions. You are steady, and in this chaotic environment, steadiness is a rare and valuable commodity. You participate in the crushing of rebellions, most notably under the command of the new governor, Do Ovando. He is a man of ruthless efficiency, and you learn much from him. He establishes the encomienda system, which is essentially a form of feudal serfdom. In this system, a Spanish colonist, an encomendero, is granted a number of native people who are supposed to provide tribute and labor in exchange for protection and Christian instruction. It is a well-known historical system that effectively legalized slavery and led to the decimation of the native population. You are granted your own encomienda as a reward for your service. Suddenly, you are no longer just a soldier. You are a lord, a man of property. You have land and, more importantly, you have a workforce. You prove to be good at it. You establish a successful plantation in the Higi region, the eastern part of Hispaniola. You oversee the cultivation of cassava and yams, and you raise livestock. You are becoming a wealthy man. An interesting, if grim, piece of trivia from this period is the role of dogs in the conquest. The Spanish brought large war dogs, like mastiffs and greyhounds, which were terrifying to the who had only ever known smaller, non-aggressive canines. These dogs were used to hunt down and terrorize rebellious natives, becoming a brutal and effective weapon of psychological warfare. You own such dogs yourself. They are a tool, like your sword and your arquebus, but a part of you is still restless. You are a landowner. Yes, you are respected. You haven't claimed a new land for yourself, for Spain. You haven't made a name that will be remembered alongside the great captains. While your plantation thrives, you hear whispers and rumors from sailors and other adventurers. They speak of another island just across the Mona Passage to the east. They say it is mountainous and lush, and more importantly, they say it is rich in gold. The of Hispaniola trade with the people of, and they show you the small gleaming nuggets they get in return. While your fellow colonists are content to manage their plantations, your gaze drifts eastward. Historians debate your primary motivation at this point. Was it pure greed for gold? Was it the ambition for a higher title and greater glory? Or was it a strategic move, seeing Hispaniola becoming crowded with ambitious Spaniards and wanting a domain of your own? The truth is likely a combination of all three. Hispaniola was your training ground. It taught you how to survive, how to fight, how to rule, and how to profit in this new world. Will be your masterpiece. The year is 1508. You are no longer just another settler in Hispaniola. You are a man of means and influence. Your estates are prosperous, your reputation solid. But the island of now appearing on Spanish maps as San Juan Bautista beckons to you across the water. It's an irresistible call to your conquistador soul. You spend months petitioning Governor Ovando, using all the political capital you've accumulated. You present it not as a personal quest for gold, but as a strategic necessity for the crown. You argue that the island must be secured before the French or the English get any ideas, and that its native population, the Caribs, need to be brought to the faith. It's a classic conquistador sales pitch. God, glory, and gold, though not necessarily in that order. Finally, you receive an official contract from the crown, granting you permission to explore and colonize the island. It's not a blank check, however. The politics of the Spanish court are a tangled web. Diego Columbus, the admiral's son, has been appointed governor of the Indies and sees you as a rival. He believes falls under his jurisdiction. This political maneuvering will haunt your entire career. A constant battle fought with letters and lawyers thousands of miles away, while you fight with swords and cannons. Historians often debate the complex legal and political rivalries of this era, and your story is a prime example. You are technically authorized by the king, but you are directly undermining the authority of his appointed governor. It's a dangerous game. You assemble a small expedition, just a single ship and about 50 men. This is not a massive fleet like Columbus's. It is a lean, targeted operation. You are not a wide-eyed explorer anymore. You are a seasoned veteran. You know exactly what you need. Hardened soldiers, a few skilled artisans, and just enough supplies to establish a foothold. You land on the southern coast of the island, a place now known as Bay. The island is breathtakingly beautiful, far more rugged and mountainous than Hispaniola. It is a fortress of nature with dense forests, steep cliffs, and rushing rivers. Your first encounter with the native population is a masterclass in the strategy you have developed. You know that brute force alone is not enough. You seek out the most powerful local cacique, or chieftain, a man named Ag. Instead of attacking, you approach him with a show of respect. You exchange gifts. You use translators to speak of your powerful king across the sea and your benevolent God in the heavens. You perform a curious and historically documented ritual of brotherhood. You and Ag exchange names, a symbolic gesture of alliance in culture. For a time, you are known to his people as Ag, and he is known to yours as Juan. It's a shrewd political move. You secure a peaceful welcome, access to food, and, most importantly, laborers who know where to find the gold you so desperately seek. It's a far cry from the open warfare that characterized the early days on Hispaniola. You quickly establish the first Spanish settlement on the island, a place you name Capara. It is, to be blunt, a terrible location. A quirky, little-known fact is that you chose the site because it was inland, close to the gold deposits, but it was situated on a swampy, mosquito-infested marsh. The conditions were miserable. The colonists complained constantly about the insects and the dampness. The settlement would eventually be moved to a much better location on the coast, which would grow into the city of San Juan. But for now, this malarial swamp is your capital. It shows your priorities. Gold, first, comfort, maybe seventh or eighth. You re a man who doesn't mind a few mosquito bites if there's profit at the end of the day. The peace with thee is fragile and short-lived. The encomienda system, which you implement just as you did in Hispaniola, is a brutal institution. Your men are not diplomats. They are greedy and violent, They abuse forcing them into back-breaking labor in the mines and on the farms, and taking their women. The alliance forged by exchanging names begins to crumble under the weight of Spanish avarice. A common historical truth is that they initially believed the Spaniards might be immortal gods. To test this theory, a group of them, under the leadership of another cacique, captured a young Spaniard named Diego Salcedo and held him underwater in a river for several hours. When he did not revive, the illusion was shattered. The Spaniards were mortal. They could be killed. This event sparked a full-scale rebellion. The war that follows is brutal. The led by Ag brother fight with desperate courage. But they are no match for Spanish steel, crossbows, arquebuses, and horses. You, the man who once exchanged names with their leader, now lead the campaign to crush them. You hunt down the rebel leaders, burn their villages, and enslave the survivors. Within a few years, the rebellion is broken. You are the undisputed master of the island, which is now formally renamed Puerto Rico, the rich port. You have succeeded. You have conquered your own island. You are named its first governor. You are wealthy beyond your wildest dreams as a young, but the victory is built on a foundation of bones. The population, ravaged by war, disease, and forced labor, begins a catastrophic decline from which it will never recover. You have your prize, but the cost is immense. And still, you hear whispers of lands even richer, further to the north. Whispers of a secret that promises not just wealth, but life itself. You are at the pinnacle of your power, yet you are adrift. It is 1512, and the political tides have turned against you. Diego Columbus, your persistent rival, has finally won his legal battles in the Spanish court. He has successfully argued that Puerto Rico falls under his hereditary domain as Admiral of the Indies. The crown, ever fickle, sides with him. You are stripped of your governorship. The island you conquered, the wealth you built, is handed over to your enemy. You are forced to watch as Columbus's lieutenants take over the administration you established. The sting of this political defeat is sharper than any sword wound. You are in your late 40s, or perhaps even early 50s, depending on which birth year you prefer. This is not middle-aged. It is old. You have fought, schemed, and killed to get where you are, and now you are being pushed aside For a man like you, idleness is a form of death. You cannot simply retire to a comfortable estate. Your entire identity is forged in conquest and the pursuit of what lies over the horizon. It is during this period of forced retirement and simmering resentment that the whispers you've been hearing start to coalesce into a concrete idea, an obsession. These are not just vague rumors anymore. They are specific tales told by slaves and grizzled Spanish sailors in the taverns of San Juan. They speak of a land to the northwest, an island called Bimini. And on this island, they say, there is a spring, a river, a fountain the stories bear whose waters grant a miraculous gift. They reverse the aging process, restoring youth to any who drink from them. This, of course, the origin of the famous fountain of youth legend, the story that will become inextricably linked with your name for the next 500 years. It's the most common historical fact associated with you, a tale told to school children and tourists alike. But the reality is, as always, more complex. The myth of restorative waters was not new. It was a popular motif in European folklore long before you were born, appearing in the romances of Alexander the Great and tales of a mythical priest-king named Prester John. They also had their own legends of a mythical land of prosperity and eternal life. What happened here was a perfect fusion, a European myth superimposed onto a new world geography, fueled by the Spanish thirst for wonder and riches. You seize upon this story. Why, historians have long debated your true motivations. Was it a literal, desperate search for eternal youth by an aging man who felt his power slipping away? Or was it a convenient and compelling cover story, a noble-sounding quest to mask a more pragmatic and familiar goal, finding more land, more gold, and more slaves? Many modern scholars lean toward the latter, a way to attract investors and secure royal permission for a risky and expensive venture. The real prize was the discovery and conquest of new territories, which would grant you a new governorship, one that even Diego Columbus could not take from you. It as a bit like a modern tech billionaire announcing they re-going to build a utopia on Mars. The grand vision helps sell the project, but the underlying goal is to build a new empire. A fun, weird fact is that they may have been telling you these stories simply to get you to leave. It's a tantalizing possibility. Assure the fountains over there, ... way over there. Just keep sailing, kind of misdirection. Whatever your primary motive, you throw yourself into the project with characteristic determination. You travel to Spain to plead your case directly before King Ferdinand. You are a persuasive man, You have a track record of success. You are the one who pacified Hispaniola and conquered Puerto Rico. You deliver what you promise. The king is impressed. He grants you another in 1512. This contract is your new lease on life. It gives you the exclusive right to discover and govern the island of Bimini and any other lands you might find. The contract explicitly mentions settling these lands and bringing the natives to Christianity. It does not, however, mention a fountain of youth. This omission is a key piece of evidence for historians who argue the fountain was more of a pretext than a primary goal. The official documents are all about the standard business of conquest. You return to Puerto Rico, a man revitalized. You are no longer the disgraced ex-governor. You are an adelantado, a commander of a new royal expedition. You use your own considerable fortune to finance the venture. Okay. You purchase and outfit 3 ships, the Santiago, the San, and the Santa de la. You carefully select your crew, a mix of seasoned sailors and tough soldiers, men you can trust. As you oversee the loading of supplies, casks of water and wine, sacks of hardtack, salted pork, crossbow bolts, and barrels of gunpowder, renewed sense of purpose burns within you. The humiliation of losing Puerto Rico is now fuel for this new, grander ambition. Whether you are searching for eternal life, a new kingdom, or simply a way to stick it to Diego Columbus, it doesn't matter. You are doing what you were born to do. You are heading back into the unknown. The 3rd of March, 1513, your 3 small ships slip out of the port of San German in Puerto Rico, their sails catching the morning breeze. A small crowd sees you off, their faces a mix of envy, hope, and skepticism. You stand on the deck of your flagship, the Santiago, and watch the familiar mountains of your conquered island recede into the haze. There is a profound sense of release. You have left the petty politics and legal squabbles behind. Ahead lies only the open sea and the allure of the unknown. Your course is set for the northwest, a heading that takes you into completely uncharted waters for the Spanish crown. The journey is, at first, deceptively calm. You are a master navigator by now, or at least you know how to hire them. You sail through the Bahamas, a scattered chain of low-lying islands you know as the Lucayos. The water is a brilliant, almost unbelievable palette of blues and greens, so clear you can see the sandy bottom many fathoms below. You stop at several islands, replenishing your water supplies and interacting with the Lucayan people. They are a branch of the Taino, and they are terrified of you. For years, Spanish slavers have raided these islands, snatching people to work to death in the mines of Hispaniola. Your arrival is not seen as a moment of discovery, but as a prelude to terror. You are not here for slaves, not primarily, but the fear in their eyes is a stark reminder of the brutal reputation that precedes you. As you sail further north, the weather begins to change. The gentle Caribbean breezes give way to more unpredictable winds. You encounter the powerful, invisible river in the ocean that you don't have a name for yet, but which future sailors will call the Gulf Stream. It's a force of nature unlike anything you've experienced. The current is so strong, it pushes your ships backward, even with a favorable wind. Your pilots are baffled. They pore over their charts, their astrolabes and quadrants, but their calculations make no sense. It's as if the sea itself is trying to resist your passage. This is a common experience for early explorers in this region, a constant battle against a current they couldn't see or understand. You, with your typical pragmatism, simply order your men to press on, to find a way to use the coastal countercurrents to their advantage. Days turn into weeks. The initial excitement of the crew begins to curdle into the familiar shipboard cocktail of boredom and anxiety. Rations are monotonous, the work is hard, and there is no sign of Bimini or any other significant landmass. A weird and little-known detail about these long voyages was the importance of shipboard entertainment. Sailors would sing sea shanties, gamble with dice made of bone, and tell fantastical stories to pass the time. The line between a tall tale and a genuine belief in sea monsters and enchanted islands was perilously thin. You, however, are not one for idle games. You are focused, your eyes constantly scanning the horizon. You are driven by a singular purpose, and you demand the same from your men. On March 27th, Easter Sunday, your lookout spots it, a long, low shape on the horizon. Not another small island, but a coastline, stretching as far as the eye can see in either direction. It is a massive, unbroken expanse of land. You have not found another island. You have found something else entirely. Have stumbled upon a continent. You sail along the coast for several days, looking for a safe place to anchor. The shore is a wall of dense, green vegetation, a riot of trees and vines that seems to swallow the sunlight. The air is thick with the scent of blossoms. On April 2nd, 1513, you find a suitable harbor and order your ships to anchor. You are rowed ashore in a longboat, your armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. The royal standard of Castile and Leon held high. As your boots press into the soil of this new land, you are struck by its wild, untamed beauty. It is the Easter season, known in Spanish as Pascua, Florida, the feast of flowers. Looking at the lush, flower-filled landscape, the name seems preordained. You plant the flag in the ground and claim this vast new territory for the Spanish crown. You name it La Florida. Historians debate the exact location of your first landing, with various cities from St. Augustine to Melbourne Beach vying for the honor. But the name La Florida will stick. It's a name born of a coincidence of the calendar and the landscape's floral beauty. You do not know it yet, but you are the first documented European to set foot on this peninsula, the first to give it a name that will last for centuries. You have not found your fountain, but you have found something far larger. You have found a kingdom, and now you must conquer it. Claiming a land is one thing. Understanding it is another entirely. You have planted your flag in La Florida, but this vast green wilderness remains a profound mystery. Your first order of business is to explore the coastline, to map its contours, and to search for any signs of the gold or the mythical fountain that brought you here. You order your small fleet to sail south, hugging the coast. The Florida you encounter is not the manicured landscape of beach resorts and retirement communities. It will one day become. It is a primal world, teeming with life and hidden dangers. The days fall into a rhythm of careful exploration. By day, you sail slowly, charting the inlets, bays, and barrier islands. At night, you anchor in sheltered coves, the sounds of the strange, nocturnal world of the Florida wilderness echoing across the water. The heat is oppressive, a damp, heavy blanket that saps the strength of your men. Your woolen and leather clothes are perpetually damp with sweat and the insects. They are a biblical plague. Mosquitoes descend in whining clouds at dusk and dawn, leaving your men covered in painful, itching welts. You'd probably trade a barrel of gold for a decent bug net right about now. It's a common theme in all early accounts of Florida. The paradise-like beauty and the hellish torment of Scotia. Its insect life. You make several landings, leading small, heavily armed parties ashore. The interior is an almost impenetrable tangle of mangrove swamps. Cypress stands, dripping with Spanish moss and dense pine forests. The ground itself seems to be half water. You quickly realize that this is not a land that can be easily traversed by men in heavy armor. The most terrifying inhabitants you encounter are the alligators. A weird but true fact about these early expeditions is the sheer terror these creatures inspired. Your men have never seen anything like them. They are logs that come to life, prehistoric monsters with incredible speed and devastating power. One can imagine the horror of a soldier wading through a murky swamp, suddenly finding himself face to face with a massive, grinning reptile. It certainly makes you think twice about going for a casual swim. Your encounters with the native people of Florida are tense and almost uniformly hostile. These are not the relatively pliable Taíno you first encountered in Hispaniola. The tribes of Florida, the Calusa, the Asa, fiercely independent and territorial. They greet your landing parties not with curiosity, but with suspicion and volleys of arrows. You try to make peaceful contact, offering bells and glass beads, the standard trinkets of first contact, but they are not interested. They see you as invaders, and they are correct. In one notable encounter, a skirmish breaks out, and your men are forced to retreat to the ships under a hail of arrows tipped with flint and fishbone. One of your men is killed. These people will not be easily subjugated. They will fight for their land. As you round the southern tip of Florida and begin to explore the western coast, you encounter the full force of the Calusa tribe. They are a powerful maritime people who control South Florida. Their warriors approach. Your ships in massive war canoes, some large enough to hold dozens of men. They are tall, powerful, and utterly fearless. Historians still debate the nature of Calusa society, as they were one of the few complex, non-agricultural societies in North America, deriving their power from the bounty of the sea. They were master woodcarvers, builders of great shell mounds, and formidable warriors. Your men, despite their steel armor and crossbows, are unnerved by the Calusa's ferocity and their sheer numbers. You engage in several sharp, inconclusive skirmishes. You manage to capture a few of them, hoping to train them as interpreters. But they remain defiantly hostile. After weeks of this fruitless and dangerous exploration, you make a decision. Your supplies are dwindling. Your men are weary and demoralized. You have mapped a significant portion of the coastline and claimed a vast new territory for Spain. But you have found no gold, no great cities, and certainly no fountain of youth. The land is hostile, and its people are even more so. You have failed to establish a settlement, a key part of your contract with the king. It is time to return. You have a new prize to report, La Florida, but it is a prize that will require a much larger, more powerful force to truly claim. As you set a course back towards Puerto Rico, you look back at the receding green coastline. The land feels ancient, powerful, and utterly indifferent to your ambitions. It has resisted you. It has humbled you. But you are Juan Ponce de Leon. You are not a man who gives up. This is not a final defeat. It is merely a tactical retreat. You will be back. The return journey from Florida is a nightmare that makes the exploration seem like a pleasant holiday. You believe you can simply retrace your steps, but the sea has other plans. You are once again caught in the grip of the Gulf Stream, that powerful, invisible river in the ocean. This time, it works against you, slowing your progress to a crawl. Storms, sudden and violent, lash your small fleet. Your men, already weary, are now pushed to the brink of exhaustion, working the pumps day and night to keep the vessels from foundering. It is during this grueling voyage that you make a fateful decision. You have not found Bimini, your original quest remains unfulfilled. Rather than return to Puerto Rico empty-handed of your primary objective, you decide to split your forces. You will take 2 of the ships and continue searching through the Bahamas, while you order your trusted captain, Anton de Alaminos, to take the 3rd ship, the San Cristobal, and continue the journey back to report your findings. This is a pragmatic move, but it also reveals your stubbornness, your unwillingness to admit even a partial defeat, while Alaminos sails for home. You plunge back into the labyrinthine maze of the Bahama Islands. This is where your quest for the fountain of youth, whether literal or symbolic, becomes a desperate, almost obsessive search. You sail from one small, sun-bleached island to another. Each one looks maddeningly similar. White sand beaches, turquoise shallows, and a dense interior of scrub and palm trees. At each island, you lead a landing party. You tramp through the undergrowth, your armor clanking in the heat. You taste the water from every spring, every brackish pond, every muddy creek. The water is sometimes fresh, sometimes foul, but never magical. The hopeful anticipation you started with has long since curdled into a grim, methodical routine. You can imagine the scene. You, a renowned conquistador, stooping to sip from a muddy puddle while your weary men stand guard, probably wondering if their commander has finally lost his mind. It's a sad, almost comical image of obsession. A little-known fact about this part of the journey is that you meticulously documented it. Your official ship's log, which has since been lost, was the primary source for the historian Antonio de Herrera y Tordesillas, who, a century later, would be the first to explicitly write that your expedition was a search for the fountain of youth. It's from his writings that the legend truly takes flight. So, while you are mired in the swamps of the Bahamas, you are also unwittingly creating the primary source material for your own myth. The historical debate here is a classic one. Did Herrera accurately report the contents of your log? Or did he embellish the story, romanticizing a standard voyage of conquest to make for a better tale? We may never know for sure. Meanwhile, your Men are suffering. Their water casks are nearly empty. The remaining hardtack is riddled with mold and weevils. Scurvy, the dreaded disease of long sea voyages, is beginning to set in, causing their gums to bleed and their teeth to loosen. Their morale is at rock bottom. They signed on for gold and glory, not to watch their aging commander taste every body of water in the Caribbean. You are a stern leader, but you are not a fool. You see the sullen looks. You hear the grumbling. You know you are pushing them and yourself to the limit. The fountain of youth remains as elusive as ever, and the reality of thirst and starvation is becoming dangerously immediate. Finally, after weeks of this fruitless search, you concede. The quest is a failure. You have not found Bimani. You have not found the fountain. You set a course for Puerto Rico, a defeated man. You arrived back in San Juan in October 1513, more than 6 months after you set out. You are greeted not as a triumphant hero, but as a curiosity. Your second in command, Alaminos, has already returned and spread the news of your discovery of the vast land of La Florida. This is a significant achievement, but it is overshadowed in your own mind by your failure to find the one thing you were searching for. You return poorer than when you left, your personal fortune depleted by the cost of the expedition. You have a new map, a new name to add to the Spanish Empire, but your personal quest, the one that was supposed to restore your fortunes and perhaps even your youth, has ended in the bitter taste of swamp water. You return to a Caribbean that is no longer your own. The world has not stood still while you were off tasting swamp water in the Bahamas. Puerto Rico is firmly in the hands of the lieutenants of Diego Columbus. Your old estates are being managed by others. Your political influence has waned. You are a man without a governorship, a conqueror without a conquest. The news of your discovery of La Florida causes a stir, but without gold or a clear path to wealth. It remains a remote and abstract prize in the eyes of the crown and your fellow colonists. It's a bit like discovering a massive, unfurnished house with a serious alligator problem. Interesting, but no one is in a hurry to move in. You realize that to claim your prize, you must once again navigate the treacherous currents of the Spanish court. In 1514, you sail for Spain. It is a long and arduous journey, but a necessary one. You cannot let your claim to La Florida be stolen from you by political rivals, just as Puerto Rico was. You arrive in Valladolid to find King Ferdinand, old and ailing, but still sharp. You are a known quantity to him, a man who gets things done. You present your case not as a wild-eyed seeker of myths, as a sober, an experienced captain of the crown. You downplay the search for the fountain and emphasize the strategic value of the new land you have discovered. You show him the maps you have made, the charts of the coastline. You speak of the potential for settlement, for agriculture, and for converting the natives to Christianity, the holy trifecta of Spanish colonial justification. Your timing is fortunate. The crown is concerned about the possibility of other European powers establishing a foothold in the New World. Your discovery of a vast coastline so far to the north is of immense strategic importance. King Ferdinand is impressed by your diligence and your vision. He grants you a new patent, a second capitulation. This one is even more sweeping than the first. It officially names you Adelantado of Bimini and La Florida. It grants you the right to conquer and settle the territory, to establish towns, and to be its governor for life. It is everything you had hoped for. You have outmaneuvered Diego Columbus. La Florida is yours. However, the contract comes with a catch, a royal command that will divert you from your grand ambition. A common historical fact is that the Carib, people of the Lesser Antilles, were a constant thorn in the side of the Spanish. They were famously fierce warriors and skilled canoeists who frequently raided Spanish settlements in Puerto Rico, carrying off supplies, captives, and slaves. The king, therefore, adds a condition to your new title. Before you can launch your grand expedition to colonize Florida, you must first lead a punitive expedition against the Caribs in the islands of Guadeloupe and the surrounding areas. You are to subdue them and put an end to their raids. You are a soldier, and you obey the king's command. You are given command of a small fleet of 3 ships. This is not the mission you wanted, but it is the mission you have been given. You sail from Spain back to the Caribbean in 1515, your mind already planning the logistics of the much larger Florida expedition that will follow. The Carib campaign, you believe, will be a short, sharp affair, a quick victory before the main event. You are wrong. This diversion will prove to be a costly and humiliating disaster. You arrive at the island of Guadeloupe, a lush, volcanic island that is a known Carib stronghold. A strange but true tidbit about this mission is the composition of your forces. To save the king money, you were ordered to stop in Hispaniola and Puerto Rico to recruit local colonists for the fight. Men who had a personal stake in stopping the Carib raids. This meant your force was a hodgepodge of professional soldiers and armed settlers. You anchor offshore and send a party of soldiers ashore to scout and unwisely to do some laundry. The women who were brought along to wash the clothes, along with their military escort, suddenly ambushed by a large force of Carib warriors who emerged silently from the dense jungle. The attack is swift and brutal, completely by surprise. Several of your soldiers are killed, and the rest, including the women, are captured and dragged off into the forest. You watch, helpless, from your ship. You are outmaneuvered, outfought. You organize a rescue party, but the jungle is too thick, the enemy too elusive. Any attempt to pursue them would be suicidal. You are forced to make a humiliating decision. You abandon the captured soldiers and civilians to their fate and order your fleet to withdraw. The punitive expedition is a complete failure. You have lost men, you have lost face, and you have utterly failed to subdue the Caribs. Historians debate the full impact of this failure on you. Some see it as a major blow to your prestige and confidence. You, the great conqueror, have been defeated by a small band of native warriors. It's a stark reminder that the new world is not yet tamed, and that even a man of your experience can make a fatal miscalculation. You retreat to Puerto Rico, your grand plans for Florida now on hold. The taste of this fresh defeat even more bitter than the memory of the last. The years following the disastrous Carib campaign are a quiet, frustrating interlude in your life. You are the Atlantado of Florida, a governor without a colony, a conqueror whose grand prize remains tantalizingly out of reach. You return to Puerto Rico and settle back into the life of a wealthy colonist. You manage your estates, you engage in the local politics, and you watch as the world changes around you. This period, from roughly 1515 to 1521, is a time of waiting. You are a lion in winter, resting, healing your wounded pride, and gathering your strength for one last great effort. You are a family man now. You are married to a woman named Leonor, and you have children. This is a side of you that history often overlooks, focusing on the armored adventurer rather than the husband and father. You build a stone house in Capara, the settlement you founded, and later, when the capital moves, you have a grand residence in the new city of San Juan, your home. The Casa Blanca still stands today, a testament to your legacy on the island. This is a common historical fact for visitors to old San Juan, though your original wooden house burned down, and the stone structure seen today was built by your descendants. It serves as a physical reminder that you were not just a transient explorer, but a founder, a man who put down roots during these years. You watch with a mixture of professional interest and personal envy as other conquistadors make their names. The locus of Spanish ambition is shifting from the Caribbean islands to the mainland of the Americas. You hear the incredible news from the West. A man named Hernan Cortes has marched into the heart of a vast and wealthy empire. He has entered a city of unbelievable splendor called Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztecs. The reports that trickle back to Puerto Rico are filled with tales of gold-paved streets, towering temples, and a civilization as complex as any in Europe. Quartz, a man younger and far more reckless than you, is on the verge of conquering an entire empire. His name is on everyone's lips. And what are you doing? You are managing sugarcane fields and arguing over cattle prices. The contrast must be maddening. Your own discovery, La Florida, seems like a poor prize in comparison. It is a land of swamps and hostile tribes, with no sign of the easy wealth that Quartz has found in Mexico. Yet, it is your land. The royal patent gives you the exclusive right to it, and the success of Quartz only adds to the pressure to make good on your claim. If you wait too long, the king might revoke your title and give it to someone else. The clock is ticking. You are now well into your 50s, perhaps even approaching 60. If you are to cement your legacy, you must act soon. A weird but telling detail from this time is your involvement in the burgeoning slave trade while waiting to launch your Florida expedition. You invested in and organized slaving missions to the useless islands, the parts of the Caribbean not deemed suitable for Spanish colonization. This was a brutal but highly profitable business. It highlights the deeply ingrained pragmatism and a certain ruthlessness in your character. You were not just a dreamer searching for fountains. You were a hard-headed businessman who understood the grim economics of the colonial enterprise. Labor was the real gold of the Indies, and you were not above trading in human lives to finance your future ambitions. Historians debate your state of mind during this period. Were you content with your wealth and family, patiently waiting for the right moment? Or were you consumed with a burning desire to match the achievements of men like Quartz, haunted by the fear of being remembered as a has-been? The man who discovered Florida but couldn't conquer it. The evidence suggests the latter. To write letters to the crown, assuring them of your intentions. You slowly begin to amass the resources for your second expedition. You are meticulous, cautious. You remember the mistakes of your first voyage, the lack of supplies, the underestimation of the native population. This time, you will not be unprepared. You spend your own fortune calling in debt and leveraging your assets. The largest and most expensive venture of your life. It is your final gamble. You are staking everything, your wealth, your reputation, and your life on the conquest of Florida. The quiet years are over. The time for action has come again. The year is 1521. A full 8 years have passed since you first set foot in La Florida. The port of San Juan is once again the scene of your ambition, but on a much grander scale than before. This is no small three-ship exploratory party. This is a full-blown colonization effort. You have poured your entire personal fortune into this venture. 2 ships are anchored in the harbor, loaded to the gunwales with everything you believe you will need to build a permanent settlement. This time, you are not just exploring, you are invading. The human cargo is as important as the material. You have recruited around 200 people. This includes not just soldiers, but also farmers, artisans, and, significantly, priests. You are bringing the pillars of Spanish society with you. You have friars to convert the natives and craftsmen to build a church. You are not just planting a flag this time. You are planting a civilization. You are also bringing your family's future with you in the form of livestock, horses, cattle, pigs, and sheep. These animals are the engines of colonization, essential for transport, labor, and food. You're basically packing a starter kit for a new Spanish town. This is a common colonization strategy of the era, a clear sign that your intent was permanent. Settlement, not a quick raid for gold. You have learned from your past mistakes. You know the native population is hostile, so you have brought a formidable military force, armed with the best weaponry of the age: crossbows, arquebuses, cannons, and fine steel swords from Toledo. You have also brought horses. Impact of a mounted knight on native peoples who have never seen such an animal cannot be overstated. A man on a horse appears to be a single, terrifying, centaur-like creature, a formidable weapon of war. You are leaving nothing to chance. However, a strange and little-known fact about this expedition is that you seem to have forgotten the single, most important lesson from your first voyage: the geography. Despite having mapped the coastline 8 years prior, your exact destination in 1521 remains a mystery. Your own records are lost, and the historical accounts are vague. Historians passionately debate where you landed. Some argue you returned to the East Coast, near your original landing site. Others, using archaeological evidence and interpretations of old maps, insist you landed on the West Coast, somewhere near modern-day Charlotte Harbor or the Caloosahatchee River, the heart of the powerful Calusa Kingdom. Landing in the heart of enemy territory would be a bold, perhaps even foolhardy, move. Let's imagine you chose the West Coast. Your ships drop anchor in a wide, shallow bay. The scene is familiar, yet more menacing than you remember. Dense mangroves, the oppressive heat, the whining of the insects. You are older now, and the physical hardships of this land weigh more heavily on you. You order your people ashore, and the chaotic process of unloading begins. The soldiers form a defensive perimeter, while the settlers' men, and perhaps even a few women, begin the back-breaking work of clearing land and constructing crude shelters. The sounds of Spanish axes and saws echo through the ancient landscape, a jarring intrusion. The priests select a site for a church and erect a simple wooden cross. Your colony has begun, but you are being watched. The Kaluza, the fierce tribe you skirmished with on your first voyage, have not forgotten you. They are masters of this environment. They move like ghosts through the swamps and forests. Your sentries report fleeting glimpses of warriors there, bodies painted for war, their eyes watching from the shadows of the trees. The air is thick with a tension that is more suffocating than the humidity. Your settlers are terrified. They are farmers, not soldiers. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every strange bird call, sends a fresh wave of panic through the fledgling settlement. The attacks, when they come, are not the pitched battles of European warfare. They are swift, brutal guerrilla raids. The Kaluza strike at dawn or dusk, appearing from the forest as if by magic. They fire a volley of arrows long, accurate shafts tipped with razor-sharp flint or stingray barbs, and then melt back into the wilderness before your soldiers can even organize a response. Your men's armor protects them from some shots, but arrows find the gaps in the joints, the exposed flesh of the face and neck. Your crossbows are slow to reload. Your arquebuses are powerful but inaccurate, and the damp air makes the gunpowder unreliable. You are a European army trained for open field combat, trying to fight an enemy that plays by a completely different set of rules. It's like trying to punch smoke. Your technological superiority is largely negated by the terrain and the tactics of your enemy. The dream of a peaceful settlement is dying, one arrow at a time. The colony is becoming a besieged fortress, and you, its governor, are trapped with it. The days at your fledgling Florida colony bleed into a miserable, monotonous cycle of fear and toil. The settlement you envisioned as a thriving Spanish town is little more than a squalid, fortified camp. The heat is relentless. Food is becoming a problem. Your supplies from the ship are finite, and attempts to plant Spanish crops in the sandy, unfamiliar soil are failing. The livestock you brought, intended to be the foundation of a new agricultural economy, are instead tempting targets for Kaluza raiders, or simply wander off into the swamps to be devoured by predators. Your men are forced to forage for food, a dangerous task that often leads to ambushes. Morale is at an all-time low. The settlers you recruited with promises of land and prosperity are now living in a state of constant terror. They huddle in their Crude, palm-thatched huts, listening to the unnerving sounds of the Florida night, starting at every shadow. The soldiers are exhausted, their nerves frayed by the constant threat of attack. They grumble that this land is cursed, that it is not worth the blood being spilled for it. You, their leader, must project an aura of calm and unshakable confidence, but inside, you must be wrestling with your own doubts. This is not the glorious conquest you planned. This is a slow, grinding war of attrition, and you are losing. Your relationship with the Calusa is one of pure, unmitigated hostility. There is no attempt at diplomacy this time, no exchanging of names with the local cacique. The pattern of raids continues, a death by 1,000 cuts. A common historical fact about the Calusa is that they were expert archers, their bows made from the resilient wood of the hickory or black locust tree, were incredibly powerful, and their arrows, according to some Spanish accounts, could pierce through chainmail. Your armored soldiers were not as invincible as they believed. The psychological toll of this constant, invisible threat is immense. It wears down your men more effectively than any pitched battle could. You decide that a passive defense is a losing strategy. You must take the fight to the enemy. You organize a series of punitive raids into the surrounding territory, determined to find the Calusa villages and destroy them, just as you did to the Taino in Puerto Rico. But the landscape of Florida is your enemy as much as the Calusa are. You lead your men on grueling marches through mosquito-infested swamps, their heavy armor sinking into the muck. You get lost in the labyrinthine waterways. The Calusa refuse to meet you in open battle. They harass your columns with hit-and-run attacks, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. They lead you into ambushes, draw you deeper into the swamp, and then disappear. Your raids accomplish nothing except to further exhaust your men and expend precious resources. A strange and grim detail from these conflicts is the Calusa's use of psychological warfare. They were known to capture Spaniards and then torture them within earshot of the settlement. The screams echoing through the night were a deliberate tactic to terrorize your remaining colonists. A brutal message that this land would never be theirs. It's a chilling reminder of the ferocity with which they defended their home. Historians debate your leadership during this critical time. Were you a stubborn old man, unable to adapt your conquest strategies from the Caribbean to this new and different reality? Or were you a victim of circumstance, facing an impossible situation with dwindling resources and an intractable enemy? Perhaps both are true. The tactics that had worked for you in Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, combination of initial diplomacy, followed by overwhelming force, were completely ineffective here. The Calusa were not interested in your trinkets, and your force was not overwhelming enough to crush their resistance. You were a master of a game whose rules had suddenly changed. Breaking point comes during one of these ill-fated raids. You are leading a party of men, perhaps scouting for a better location for the settlement, or attempting to engage the enemy. The details are lost to history, shrouded in the fog of a confused and desperate skirmish. But the outcome is brutally clear. The Kaluza spring a sudden, violent ambush. Arrows rain down from the trees. In the chaos of the fight, you feel a searing pain in your thigh. You look down to see the feathered shaft of an arrow protruding from your leg. The arrowhead, likely made from a sharpened deer antler or the spine of a stingray, is buried deep in your flesh. The wound is serious, and in the filth and humidity of the swamp, infection is almost a certainty. The great Conquistador, the man who faced down armies and crossed oceans, has been struck down by a single, silent arrow. Your men fight their way free and carry you, bleeding and in agony, back to the dubious safety of the camp. The arrow wound changes everything. The physical agony is immense, but the wound to your authority is just as severe. You, the indomitable leader, are now an invalid, confined to your cot, your face pale with fever. The camp already teetering, on the brink of collapse, loses its central pillar of strength. The whispers of doubt among your men now grow into open calls for retreat. What hope do they have if even their legendary commander can be brought down so easily? The settlement's makeshift surgeon, likely a barber with more experience pulling teeth than treating complex wounds, does his best. He probes the wound, trying to extract the arrowhead. The pain is excruciating. He applies poultices of herbs and chants prayers. But 16th century field medicine is a brutal and often ineffective affair. A little known but grim fact is that arrowheads used by some Florida tribes were designed to break off when an attempt was made to pull the shaft out, leaving the sharp point embedded in the flesh to cause a festering infection. It's highly likely this is what happened to you. The wound does not heal. It becomes inflamed, hot to the touch, and begins to seep pus. A fever takes hold of you, leaving you drifting in and out of consciousness, your mind a confused haze. Of pain and memory, your lieutenants gather around your sickbed. The situation is untenable. The Kaluza, likely emboldened by the news of your injury, have increased the frequency and ferocity of their attacks. The stockade is weak, the food is nearly gone, and the men are on the verge of mutiny. To stay is to guarantee death, either from starvation, disease, or a final, overwhelming Kaluza assault. The decision is made, perhaps with your feverish consent, perhaps without it. The Florida colony is to be abandoned. The great enterprise, the culmination of your life's ambition, has lasted only a few agonizing months. It is a complete and utter failure. The retreat is a chaotic and miserable affair. Your men work with desperate haste, loading what little is left of their supplies and the most seriously wounded, including you, back onto the two ships. There is no time for ceremony, no dignified withdrawal. They leave behind the crude huts, the neglected graves of their comrades, and the simple wooden cross the priests had erected. They abandon your dream to the relentless green of the Florida wilderness. As the ships pull away from the shore, you might, in a moment of lucidity, catch a final glimpse of the land that has defeated you, a flat, green line on the horizon, indifferent to your departure. The journey to Havana, Cuba, is an ordeal. You are delirious with fever, tossing and turning in your cramped bunk in the ship's cabin. The rocking of the vessel is a constant source of torment to your wounded leg. The infection is spreading through your body, a poison in your blood. Your men can do little but try to make you comfortable and pray. You are dying, and you know it. Historians debate the exact cause of your death. Was it a simple infection like tetanus or gangrene from the dirty wound? Or was the arrowhead poisoned, as some early accounts suggest? The Calusa were known to use toxins from the manchineel tree on their arrows. While definitive proof is impossible, a poisoned wound would certainly explain the speed and severity of your decline. You arrive in Havana. In July of 1521, a broken man, you are carried ashore, a shadow of the powerful figure who set out from Puerto Rico with such high hopes just a few months earlier. You are taken to a home where you are tended to, but it is too late. The infection has overwhelmed your body's defenses. Your life, which has been a relentless forward march of ambition and conquest, is now fading away in a fever dream in a borrowed bed. Far from the lands you conquered and the one you failed to. You have chased glory across oceans and continents, but in the end, you were defeated by the land itself, by the people who called it home, and by a single, well-aimed arrow. Your quest for a land of eternal youth has led you only to an early grave. The arrow wound changes everything. The physical agony is immense, but the wound to your authority is just as severe. You, the indomitable leader, are now an invalid, confined to your cot, your face pale with fever. The camp, already teetering, on the brink of collapse, loses its central pillar of strength. The whispers of doubt among your men now grow into open calls for retreat. What hope do they have if even their legendary commander can be brought down so easily? The settlement's makeshift surgeon, likely a barber with more experience pulling teeth than treating complex wounds, does his best. He probes the wound, trying to extract the arrowhead. The pain is excruciating. He applies poultices of herbs and chants prayers, but 16th century field medicine is a brutal and often ineffective affair. A little known but grim fact is that arrowheads used by some Florida tribes were designed to break off when an attempt was made to pull the shaft out, leaving the sharp point embedded in the flesh to cause a festering infection. It's highly likely this is what happened to you. The wound does not heal. It becomes inflamed, hot to the touch, and begins to seep pus. A fever takes hold of you, leaving you drifting in and out of consciousness, your mind a confused haze. Of pain and memory, your lieutenants gather around your sickbed. The situation is untenable. The Calusa, likely emboldened by the news of your injury, have increased the frequency and ferocity of their attacks. The stockade is weak, the food is nearly gone, and the men are on the verge of mutiny. To stay is to guarantee death, either from starvation, disease, or a final, overwhelming Calusa assault. The decision is made, perhaps with your feverish consent, perhaps without it. The Florida colony is to be abandoned. The great enterprise, the culmination of your life's ambition, has lasted only a few agonizing months. It is a complete and utter failure. The retreat is a chaotic and miserable affair. Your men work with desperate haste, loading what little is left of their supplies and the most seriously wounded, including you, back onto the two ships. There is no time for ceremony, no dignified withdrawal. It is a panicked flight. They leave behind the crude huts, the neglected graves of their comrades, and the simple wooden cross the priests had erected. They abandon your dream to the relentless green of the Florida wilderness. As the ships pull away from the shore, you might, in a moment of lucidity, catch a final glimpse of the land that has defeated UA Flat. Green line on the horizon, indifferent to your departure. The journey to Havana, Cuba, is an ordeal. You are delirious with fever, tossing and turning in your cramped bunk in the ship's cabin. The rocking of the vessel is a constant source of torment to your wounded leg. The infection is spreading through your body, a poison in your blood. Your men can do little but try to make you comfortable and pray. You are dying, and you know it. Historians debate the exact cause of your death. Was it a simple infection like tetanus or gangrene from the dirty wound? Or was the arrowhead poisoned, as some early accounts suggest? The Calusa were known to use toxins from the manchineel tree on their arrows. While definitive proof is impossible, a poisoned wound would certainly explain the speed and severity of your decline. You arrive in Havana in July of 1521, a broken man. You are carried ashore, a shadow of the powerful figure who set out from Puerto Rico with such high hopes just a few months earlier. You are taken to a home where you are tended to, but it is too late. The infection has overwhelmed your body's defenses. Your life, which has been a relentless forward march of ambition and conquest, is now fading away in a fevered dream in a borrowed bed. Far from the lands you conquered and the one you failed to, you have chased glory across oceans and continents. But in the end, you were defeated by the land itself, by the people who called it home, and by a single, well-aimed arrow. Your quest for a land of eternal youth has led you only to an early grave. Centuries pass. The world you knew, a world of caravels, crossbows, and uncharted maps, vanishes into the mists of time. Your physical remains are eventually moved from Cuba to Puerto Rico, and in 1908, they are placed in a marble tomb in the Cathedral of San Juan Bautista, a final, dignified resting place in the city you helped found. Your tomb is inscribed with your coat of arms and a simple epitaph, a testament to your historical importance to the island. You are a historical figure, a subject for academics and students. But your ghost, the myth of your quest, has a life of its own. It haunts the landscape of Florida, the land that rejected you so violently. The fountain of youth, the chimera you may or may not have been chasing, becomes a permanent fixture of Florida's identity. It evolves from a myth into a tourist attraction. A common historical fact is the establishment of the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park in St. Augustine, Florida. It is located on the site of the first Spanish settlement in the continental United States, founded by Pedro Menendez de Avalos in Liu, more than 50 years after your voyage. The park's owners made a brilliant marketing move by linking their site to your much earlier and more famous story. Millions of visitors have come to this spot to drink the sulfurous well water, to pose for pictures, and to partake in the legend. Your name is on the sign. You have become a brand. The irony is staggering. You, a hardened conquistador, motivated by a complex mix of greed, ambition, and piety, are now a figure of romantic fantasy. The brutal realities of your life, the subjugation of the Taino, the slaving ventures, the bloody battles with the Caluzar airbrushed away, replaced by a gentle, wistful story about a search for magic water. It's the ultimate rebranding. A quirky but true detail is that the water from the St. Augustine fountain is from the Floridan aquifer and has a distinct smell and taste of sulfur, like rotten eggs. The fact that people eagerly drink it is perhaps the greatest testament to the power of a good story. They are not tasting water. They are tasting a myth. Historians, of course, continue to do their work, trying to peel back the layers of legend to find the real man. The academic debate over your true motivations for the 1513 expedition will likely never be resolved. Was it a literal quest born of vanity and a fear of aging? Was it a cynical cover story for a land grab? Or was it something in between, a man who was pragmatic enough to seek land and power, but who also lived in an age where magic and miracles still seemed possible? A man who might have thought, well, while I'm out there conquering new lands, it couldn't hurt to keep an eye out for a magic spring, just in case. This last possibility is perhaps the most human and the most believable. You were a man of your time, and your time was a strange mixture of medieval faith and Renaissance. Ambition. Your story endures because it speaks to something fundamental within us all. The desire to cheat death, to turn back the clock, to find a shortcut to eternal vitality. You are the patron saint of this hopeless, beautiful human longing. You represent the folly and the allure of the ultimate quest. Your failure to find a fountain is, in a way, as important as the search itself. It serves as a universal, cautionary tale that immortality cannot be found on any map, and that, in chasing a fantasy, we often miss the finite, precious reality of the life we already have. Your two legacies, the historical and the mythical, continue their parallel journeys. One is a story of a complex and ruthless man who played a key role in the violent birth of the Americas. The other is a timeless fairy tale whispered on a Florida breeze. And in the end, it is the fairy tale, the simple, powerful story of a man who searched for a fountain of youth that grants you the one thing you were searching for all along. A life that never, ever ends. And so, the story of Juan Ponce de Leon comes to a close. The man became a myth, his worldly ambitions dissolving into a far more enduring legend that still whispers to us across the centuries. The fevered dream of conquest gave way to the quiet immortality of a story well told, a story of a search that we all, in some small way, continue in our own lives. The waves still crash on the shores of Florida. The humid air still hangs heavy. Under the cypress trees and the memory of your journey, a faint echo of steel and sail fades into the gentle, quiet darkness of the room around you. The quest is over. The struggle is done. It is time for quiet and for rest. Let the gentle rhythm of your own breathing be the only sound now, a soft and steady tide as you drift away from history and into your own peaceful, untroubled sleep.